I was lucky enough to grow up in a fun, adventurous family. My parents started a scuba diving store over 30 years ago. We also incorporated kayaking, canoeing, camping. We rock climb. As a family, we started dirt biking on the side. And eventually we started skydiving as well, which was super fun. There's nothing quite like the feeling of free falling through the air. You don't get much of a more adrenaline rush than that. During the summer as a family, we would go mountaineering. When I was 9 years old, we were able to do Mount Rainier. When we summited the peak and we got to the top, it was the greatest sense of self-accomplishment that I've ever had. As a teenager, I started snowboarding. That was one of the funnest things I've ever done too. I loved being up on the mountains. I loved surfing on the powder and having just a sense of freedom. But I unfortunately one day broke my leg snowboarding and shattered my tibia, and 5 surgeries later, after having reconstructive surgery and then bone and cartilage transplanted into my leg, and now I have a full knee replacement. My doctor had warned me that after having multiple surgeries, it's harder to be as emotionally stable as you'd like to be. And each surgery, I noticed that. There was days where I didn't want to get out of bed, and I didn't want to every step be reminded of the pain that I was going through. When I started using the essential oils, they would bring me back to all these fun and enjoyable and peaceful activities I got to do, being out in the forest, hiking and mountaineering, and I absolutely loved them because of the instant feelings of peacefulness and being out in nature and calming that they would give me. Doterra has been amazing for me to be able to rely on. We're able to go do a lot more things than we used to, and it's been fun getting more active and having Doterra alongside us to support us. I am so grateful for Doterra and for how it supports our family and literally has changed my life. I'm able to be more active. I'm able to live the life that I love again.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Dr. Brannock Riggs and the Physicians Panel.
Well, we're excited to be back again this year. After last year, drinking the oil on stage, we weren't sure we'd be invited back, but we're grateful they did that. We'd like to welcome 2 new members of our board. We have with us Dr. Andrew Goff. He's an emergency medicine physician. Andrew, you already have a fan club at the age of 14. That's pretty good, buddy.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, guys.
Andrew practices emergency medicine in Aberdeen, South Dakota. He and his wife are the parents of 5 children, and he's been using essential oils in his practice as well as his home for many years. The other new member that we have to our board is Dr. Amy Woltoff. Amy practices dermatology in Dallas, Texas. She's a wonderful addition to our board. We are excited to have her, and she's a new mother of 1, so we're excited for that new adventure for you as well, Dr. Woltoff. Thank you so much. So let's start off today's panel with asking some questions that have to do with our new members of the board. Dr. Goff, why have you chosen to become involved with Doterra?
All right, so I grew up in England to a father who practiced East meets West medicine and a mother who was a midwife who really enjoyed using essential oils. So about 4 years ago, when I was introduced to doTERRA essential oils, it just felt natural. And as I started using the essential oils with my family, we noticed incredible benefits. It really started to make me believe that there's power to these essential oils. So I started to study what I could. And as I studied extensively, I came to the realization that doTERRA really is the source of the most trusted, most tested essential oils that you can get. And that gave me confidence to continue using them and recommend them to my patients. We are so lucky to have an awesome medical board led by Dr. Hill. With his leadership, we've done great things. I'm really excited to be a part of this.
Wonderful. Thank you, Andrew. Dr. Woltoff, how have essential oils helped you personally and then also in your practice as a dermatologist?
So I know this isn't a dermatology panel, but I can probably go on and on about how you can use essential oils for skin stuff. Personally, though, I'll start with having a 9-month-old baby. You mentioned I'm a new mom, and so if looking a little more tired, don't judge me as a dermatologist. However, if we didn't have Serenity in our house, I don't think my husband and I would have made it through the last 9 months. Every night, my son doesn't know going to bed without it. He's not here with us, so I'm hoping the grandparents read the instructions closely, otherwise they're in for a long night. And then once it worked on him, I passed it on to my husband, and we can't live without it. Of course, there's plenty others, but Serenity has saved us over the past 9 months. As far as in my practice, I would say when we're in medical school, you know, we learn about the entire body. And when patients come to see me, it's not just one ailment usually that they're coming in for. A lot of times, and we know there's a lot of science behind it, and more is coming out of how emotions and stress can affect any skin condition. And so what a win as a physician to have something you can use to treat not only symptoms but overall well-being. I can say, again, there's so many I could talk about, but 2 essentials that I think are good to touch on briefly, again, not a dermatology panel, are peppermint. I never go into the office without it. I add it to, and have patients add it to, the topicals that they use, especially for symptoms with itch. And I did it a while back, not really knowing specifics about it, but I have read, studies that actually tell us why it works, not only to help with the alleviating the itch or symptoms associated with it, but also helping with the absorption of the actual medicine that we're trying to put on. The other one I use a lot of is lavender, and so again, so many things you could say about lavender, but in general, working specifically on healing cells of the skin and inflammation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Woltoff. Appreciate that. I think we found with our own kids, and we have 5, my wife and I, that sometimes there's Serenity for the kids and sometimes there's Serenity for the parents, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It's pretty common.
Thank goodness.
Dr. Tad Geiger is our anesthesiologist that's on our medical advisory board. Dr. Geiger, in your specialty of anesthesiology, safety is a major consideration. What is it about doTERRA that gives you the confidence to use doTERRA essential oils in your practice?
I love that question because as an acute care anesthesiologist for more than 30 years, safety has always been a major concern for me. And when I started using oils in the operating room about 10 years ago, I was very concerned how to implement them safely on patients under those conditions where I'm giving sometimes a dozen or more medications to people for over the course of several hours. So safety for you in your home is a bit different. You all have a safety concern when you're out shopping for food. Oils are considered food, but in doTERRA, our oils are not food grade. They are certified pure and therapeutic grade. So my concern for safety has been taken care of by doTERRA in their standard of testing, that all the oils I know will be safe, and not only safe, but pure. And that's very important for all of you and your families, as well as for me and my family. Safety is a major concern, and I'm so glad that I can rest assured in the doTERRA initiative that we will all be taking care that the practice that we implement integratively will have that great safety principle as well.
So I would say that if there's a theme to this year's convention, it may have something to do with what we all do for a job. So I'm curious from the board, why are essential oils relevant in healthcare? Is this a timing issue? Is this an acceptance issue? Maybe a research issue? Why do you all think that essential oils have a place in healthcare?
Well, I believe that it's all of those. I believe it's a timing issue, timing of our healthcare system having many issues, timing in that the public has demanded this. They've demanded better healthcare. They've demanded more holistic healthcare, safer healthcare. And I think it's a timing issue in the fact that Doterra has arrived. And I think they've made a product and have the caring and the vision that nobody else has had.
Thank you.
Dr. Riggs, we have moved into a time in healthcare where the anonymity of our patients is really difficult for them to come into our offices. They feel like a number. Those of us who have been introduced to essential oils over the years, we were originally fascinated by perhaps the interesting mysticism, and then we were excited about learning what the constituents of essential oils do in the cytoplasm of a cell or a cell membrane or a nucleus. And then we've all kind of come full circle where we understand that integrating all of the different constituents and all the different non-adulterated essential oils in our practice really brings the care back into healthcare. We have a patient pool in the United States that is just yearning for a return to that sanctity of the patient-doctor relationship. And this does foster that. In my particular practice, I have integrated essential oils in my clinic where every one of my patients get a hand and foot and forearm and calf massage with the 10 essential oils that have clinical efficacy regarding decreasing in heart rate, blood pressure, diastolic and systolic. Preoperatively, my patients are getting all of the anti-nausea type of medications, the ginger and peppermint and spearmint and cardamom. They're sent to the PACU, the post-anesthesia care unit, with DigestZen, which is just the most lovely, helpful, soothing part of my protocol to help them feel much more comfortable in the PACU. They feel attended to, they don't feel like they're a number, and it is very efficacious in a very nice, mellow way rather than the harsh side effects so acquainted with FDA-approved medications.
Thank you, Paul.
I just wanted to chime in too. We just had a discussion with some members of my wife and my team, and we're talking about this healthcare initiative and what does it mean for us. And they all wanted to hear what I had to say, and I basically said, you know, there's only so many of me, there's only so many of us, but we're all patients, and we all are a part of this, and you know, it matters to all of us from that aspect. I've been most of this convention walking around with my 6-month-old daughter, holding her in my arms and taking care of her, and I can't help but think about the health care that she's going to inherit depending on the choices that we make. So I think why now better than ever is the time to change things, and why Doterra is really a means or a mechanism to help us do this, because it really does promote the patient assuming control and power over their own health care. So.
Perfect.
I just would like to add, and I'm sure you guys are probably some of these patients that come to me and say, I've got this ailment, I went to this other doctor, they threw a topical at me, I really don't want to put these chemicals on my skin. Are there any other options? And I think as a physician, we're here to serve, we're here to take care of those patients. The only responsible thing to do is to know about this stuff that can be so helpful to those patients and people that may have run out of other options or have long-term side effects from some of those medications. And so this is just, for me, I'm still new, I'm still learning more and more, but how awesome is it to have these options and some of that science to go behind it, especially for like-minded people who want to have that research and have that evidence-based medicine, but also have those alternative options.
Thank you.
I see the reason why we're here in healthcare now kind of being a three-pronged approach where we've seen some of the pitfalls of healthcare, some of the numbers that have been discussed in the last few days, and we need a change, and change is essential. And here you are, being a fantastic grassroots education campaign for your neighbors, for the healthcare industry. Many of you are within that yourselves. And lastly, we have doTERRA, where we have unprecedented safety and purity of essential oils, and all those three pieces coming together is this perfect knight in shining armor to kind of get us to where we need to be in the healthcare world in this country.
Perfect. Thank you. You know, I find it interesting that I would say that early on in probably all of our careers, except for yours, Andy, which started like yesterday, I think, but early on in all of our careers, there wasn't this big issue with, we didn't think so much that the healthcare system was broken. And now, as we've progressed in our careers and we've seen more and more challenges, and as we talked a little bit yesterday, how healthcare costs are rising and rising faster than the rate that wages are rising, and we see this inevitable point in which it's all going to break down. I find it amazing that, for lack of a better term, we'll say the universe has combined to make the answers available now that weren't available 20 years ago when we were in training, that now are available, and we are a part of that. That's pretty amazing. So on to the question about research. What will some statistically significant clinical-based research on the effectiveness of essential oils mean for the medical field?
I think as we engage our colleagues, perhaps the ones that are a little more skeptical, some with frank ire towards the direction we're taking, those statistically significant data points, particularly with human trials, is going to be transformative, and it already has been. 20 years ago, we didn't have a really good, solid bibliography of human trials. We do now. And when it comes to statistical significance, there's a certain number that's assigned that makes a study demonstrating the efficacy or effectiveness of essential oils. And those are now available. So I can go to my surgical center or hospital, or you can go to your vertically integrated hospital system with laminated cards with human trials saying, well, here's the data. And it's no longer refutable. It moves the role of essential oils from a peripheral player to a mainstream player. One other thing, you don't provide continuing medical education services for nurses and physicians unless you are giving them those credits for studying real science. Now, some of you purists out there might not like that term, real science, but I'll tell you, to move this mammoth forward, it takes those studies. And when we provide continuing medical education for our physicians, that's mainstream, and that's where we are.
So I just want to add, we're blessed to have awesome research coming out now about essential oils, but all that research does is one thing. It confirms to us what we already know, that the oils work. Right? More than that, I want you to remember this, okay? Everyone here has had an experience with an essential oil. That's why we're here. Trust that experience that you've had. You know that it works, you've had that experience. So move forward with faith, knowing that the research is coming to give you more validity.
Essential oils have an extremely firm place in the family and in the home, and research is just going to provide that firm foundation for them to be officially in healthcare.
Just this last year, doTERRA arranged to publish through BioSeek in free press that anyone can locate and download more than a dozen articles that are extremely remarkable. As I read them, I was so impressed that many of them involved human testing systems, not on whole humans, but on human cell cultures. This is a landmark breakthrough in research done by doTERRA. And this doTERRA initiative is just only beginning to take shape and form, but this year in particular is truly remarkable.
And on a level that interacts with you and I and our individual physicians. I think there's a group of physicians out there that are just waiting to get the evidence to allow them to use it. And there's a group of physicians out there that would like the evidence to show nothing more than what they want to believe is that they don't work. And I think the research, as we're finding, is showing exactly what we know, is that they do, and it's going to help us to break down the physicians that are resistant, to be able to open it up as a general medical practice and not be an integrative or alternative type of medicine.
Perfect. Thank you. So, as physicians, some of the challenges that we have of various patients coming in, and some take responsibility for their health, others do not, and leave that responsibility to us. But what does it mean to you as a physician to partnership with people in their health care? Stumped them, yeah.
I'd love to take this one. So, I come from a small town in South Dakota, Aberdeen, and that's where they're from too. So, what I found is that while we're the experts sitting up here, we're the medical physicians, people are the experts in their own body. They know how they feel. They also know how they want to feel. As we take our time to sit down and listen to not only their symptoms, but their problems, we can gain a greater understanding of what is going on in their lives and how we can then initiate change in their lives.
One very interesting principle, you'll hear academicians and pencil neck physicians talk about evidence-based practice, that before we move a modality into our practice, there must be hardcore evidence. Well, what a partnering patient can do is turn that around. Practice-based evidence, meaning empirical, observed outcomes where they can come to us and say, hey, this particular oil blend or this particular modality has been so helpful, and although there might be a dearth of hardcore data, that's evidence-based practice. And partnering with patients in their subjective experience and, frankly, as it turns into objective evidence, that can really form a partnership with us in the medical world and all of you.
I was going to say, part of this partnership and this relationship between a physician and his patient needs to be based on honest, open discussion. And as far as essential oils and where that comes in, basically, we need to do a better job as physicians to be more open to essential oils, the more and more that we learn about them. And I would say to you, be more courageous about telling your physician what you are doing. And the more that we're open, we have that open discussion between the two of us, the more that we can better understand how we can work together.
I think the physician-patient relationship and having both parties involved is critical to any care in any specialty. Not only does it open that door to be able to bring up things, ask questions they may not feel comfortable asking other people. Even if I don't know the answer, I can offer to look it up, but it motivates them to be involved and be compliant with their health care, which only improves outcomes. And then they can also, when they're feeling confident in that, allows them to share that with other people, which I'm sure you guys do every day, and it can outreach and touch more lives than just the physician can by themselves.
And one other partnership that I think it entails, is particularly in this initiative that we're going through, is we're partnering with our patients for health care, for preventative medicine, to get to learn them, to spend more time. We're also partnering with wellness advocates to carry that on. We can bring them into the office and talk to them about essential oils. Then the well-educated wellness advocate is going to educate them even further and take it into their home. So it's kind of a partnership with society.
Perfect, yeah.
Can I just echo that point, that basically we as physicians, as much as we want to spend an hour with each patient, We really don't have that time. And that, as you all know, that education, that time that it takes to teach about the essential oils and how they work, you know, that time that Dr. Hill took with us, for example, he went over time, but he spent the time that needed to share that information with us. So we need to take that example, and as wellness advocates, we'll rely on you to do a lot of the educating as we work together with patients for their health.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. You know, I'm reminded as Josh, you were talking earlier in an answer to one of the questions that one of the research articles I read recently said that 63% of our patients are using some form of alternative care. Now that's reporting by them answering a survey. My experience has been in practice that I'm not seeing 63% of my patients telling me that I use alternative care. And so the openness to your physicians will be very helpful. Now, the dirty little secret that I also found out is that for physicians and nurses, 76% of us are using alternative care in our own healthcare with our own families, but we're not proponents of that necessarily in the office. So we need to be talking about that more with our patients, and physicians in general need to be having that open conversation with them.
I completely agree.
So we recently had our medical symposium. That was Tuesday. Did everybody that was there, did you enjoy that? Good. It was a fun experience for us. We could finally speak off the cuff with fairly untethered. There were two things we couldn't say. One was the word doTERRA, and the other was any of the blends that doTERRA makes. But everything else, we could make all sorts of wonderful, show the evidence that we all use in our practice for healthcare concerns. But how does that impact healthcare? This was the first annual symposium, medical symposium on essential oils. So from this point on, how does that affect healthcare?
We're at a point in many elements and paradigms of healthcare where we've reached standstills. Let's bring up two words, faith and hope. There are certain parts of healthcare where we are really struggling right now. One of which we discussed at length at this symposium was multi-drug resistant bacteria. Now, I caution all of you not to leave here saying essential oils are going to kill that MRSA or that vancomycin resistant E. coli, but frankly, they are. Because our pharmaceutical industry has reached a point where we simply cannot just take one chemical and treat those bacteria without those bacteria evolving with their replication and becoming resistant. If you have an essential oil that has 4 active constituents that attack the microbe from different places, so that microbe might multiply its resistance in one of those vulnerabilities, the 3 other sites are still going to be killed. And we are truly at the precipice of a very exciting time where, given the pharmaceutical industry is no longer really able to effectively fight those multi-drug resistant microbes, essential oils are entering the realm of true solutions. So essential oils, faith and hope. It really takes us full circle.
We'll hope that Mark Wolfert isn't here listening at the moment.
As a physician, I have always really strived to have a clinical practice that included aromatherapy. So I became certified as a clinical aromatherapist, and I always have liked the term medical aromatherapy because as an MD, I would like to think that I know what I'm doing when I'm integrating natural solutions into the things that I do. And so this symposium to me was a major breakthrough, the first of many, I would hope, where many, many, many licensed to touch personnel, people who have degrees in different things, pharmacists, nurses, all the different specialties, can get together and see the research, hear presentations, and work together to find new connections socially and in business, in aromatherapy, in the hospitals, in the clinics, in the offices, everywhere. And it will spill over into the homes and vice versa. So I'm so proud of doTERRA taking the initiative, and Dr. Hill in particular, to bring forth the first clinical symposium on aromatherapy and essential oils. Magnificent. Thank you, sir.
So I'd just like to add as well, you can probably tell I'm not from South Dakota. I grew up in England, and one of the reasons I came to the States was to practice the Andrew Taylor Still Kirksville College of Osteopathic Medicine. It's the founding school of osteopathic medicine, and I went there with the goal to learn a holistic approach to healthcare. I was taught nothing about essential oils or nutrition, nothing. One of the reasons why I feel that the medical physicians in general are resistant to essential oils is because we just don't know. We're not taught. What the medical symposium did yesterday was taught and educated over 500 medical professionals about the efficacy of essential oils. And that is just the start.
Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful. I give Dr. Goff a hard time because he kept his hair through 5 children and I did not, so I'm just jealous, honestly. So the last question is I'm often asked, and I'm sure many of you are as we travel and we have the opportunity to speak at Doterra events, I'm often asked, well, how do I talk to my doctor about essential oils? How do I approach him about what I'm doing? And how would you respond to that? What is the best way for patients to approach their doctor to say, look, this is what I'm doing. I want you to be comfortable with what I have decided to do for my health care.
All right, expect some resistance. It's going to happen, I'm sorry. I'd like to share a quick experience. We've got a pregnant lady in my team, Melissa Tripp. She's pregnant with her 3rd baby, and she started using Lifelong Vitality. And when she went to her prenatal appointment and told her physician she was using that, she was told to get off of it, that it's no good. So she called me up kind of wondering, it's like, is this really beneficial? We've got a OB physician on our panel. What do you think? Good? And so I told her, it's good. I gave her some research that we're able to find on PubMed and aromatic science. She went back to that physician and presented that research. Because she trusted in her experience and she was armed with some evidence that she could give her physician, she was able to have a frank conversation with her physician and change the physician's mind. But it's going to take all of us to do that, okay? We need your help. Please help us.
In that discussion, if you're facing some resistance or you're just having a wonderful new discussion with your physician, having some research handy is always helpful because it's either going to forward that positive conversation or maybe kind of counteract that potentially negative conversation. And you can find plenty of examples on aromaticscience.com as well as PubMed. And challenge your doctor to, for their specialty or for their interests, go ahead and search those sites and find something else that's even more relative to their particular interest. There's so much evidence out there, and you helping to share it's going to be wonderful.
I would say start using some of the words we've learned this convention. Start saying therapeutic aromatic compounds. Talk about monoterpenes, sesquiterpenes. Tell your doctor what those properties can do in your essential oils. I think the more that we start talking about the research and the terms that are used in the research, it'll pique everybody's curiosity and it'll move things along.
Piggybacking off that, I would say as physicians, we ideally love to learn. Otherwise, why would we go to so much school? So play on that and ask questions, but also bring some information. I love when patients ask me things that I don't know, truly, because I can only learn from that. And I think as physicians, we are lifelong learners, and that can only make us better physicians for our patients.
Absolutely. I think I've learned more from my patients than I have through books in the last several years.
Perfect. So we've talked about the medical symposium and we've talked about healthcare. Let's get back to Doterra for just a moment. With the new healthcare initiative, Doterra has in its mission statement this idea of partnering with Western medicine and to bring together healthcare professionals of traditional and alternative medicine to encourage further study and application of these therapeutic grade essential oils in modern healthcare practices. So how do these healthcare initiatives uphold and further this mission of doTERRA? Stumped him again.
All right, here we go. So what I've found is that it empowers people, okay? It gives people options. As a physician who can now sit down with a patient and give them both side, like, options. I can give them a medical prescription. I can give them a natural alternative. Like, and they can choose. Sometimes it's a mixture of both. Sometimes it's one. Sometimes it's the other. But it's an option. And we have a choice. And it's empowering.
That is beautiful. Absolutely.
And doTERRA, in my eyes, and I believe everybody's eyes here, is more than just an essential oil company. They're really in this to make America healthier. And I think this healthcare initiative is the pinnacle. It is the top that they can do to make this country a better place, a healthier place, and make every individual in it healthier.
Well, Paul?
What works, works. What is efficacious is efficacious. What will help a patient with their bowel dysmotility, with their perioperative nausea, with their deep periprosthetic joint infections, works. And to me, we need to integrate every possible modality we can that is efficacious, that works. And if physicians or patients are willfully negligent to move in those directions, we don't have our priorities straight. That's what's so exciting as we move ahead with the future. I think we are at the precipice where essential oils, aromatic compounds, other integrative modalities have such powerful efficacy, we simply are negligent if we don't include them integratively as a whole approach to medicine.
Absolutely.
Piggybacking on that, we have an ethical and moral obligation to provide what's efficacious, what's safe, what's natural to our patients, and essential oils are that therapeutic, cost-effective means that we need to explore.
As physicians, we are inundated with metrics and indicators, and one of them is quality improvement. And I think this doTERRA initiative will be real, valuable, meaningful quality improvement in the healthcare of our system and all of the lives of people globally.
I think partnering is a great word because we've learned so much with traditional Western medicine, and we have so much knowledge now with essential oils. We basically need to combine that, take all the knowledge we have, and use that knowledge to inspire us to improve our health, to improve the health for our patients and our families. And that's what I think this is all about, Convention, is we're learning, we're gaining knowledge, and knowledge is power. Because that, now that I'm a doctor and I know about essential oils, I can't help but think about how this can help my patient when they're struggling with traditional therapies that haven't worked. So we have to combine both modalities and use all the knowledge we have. All truth is good, so we need to do that.
Perfect. So let me just close by saying what an honor it is to work with these great men and women and to have mind share with them. There's been several times where I have been stumped in my own practice with a patient and have had to call one of them and have a question about, so what would you use in this situation? And there's always an answer, and I'm grateful for the brilliant minds that are up here on the stage today. So let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you.
A backlist love sneaks. My discotheque, Juliet, teenage dream. I felt it in my chest as she looked at me. I knew we were bound to be together.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Doterra Founding Executive, Product Marketing and Branding Services, Rob Young.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon and to present. I'm taking on a little bit of different role this year at convention, and I'm thrilled with the assignment that I have this afternoon because I've been asked to talk to you today about the Lifelong Vitality Pack, okay? And I love, as you know me, and you know I love talking about the Lifelong Vitality Pack, but I'm going to start with a few fun photos. Is that okay? The first one I want to show to you is, I took this picture almost 10 years ago today of my first 4 wonderful partners, and we were kind of a little bit of a rough group when we began this whole adventure called Doterra. After I took those pictures, I asked everybody to go home and put some nicer clothes on, and we made our first attempt at kind of dolling up and having an official-looking executive photo. Do you like that picture? Do you guys remember that? That used to be on our very first website. So I wanted to share another interesting photo with you. This is a picture from a binder that I have in my office. And this binder has pages that I shared with my partners before I was even officially a part of Doterra. I was just helping them out as some old friends of mine. And here you see the little number 1 in that dot by Doterra. That was the name that had emerged from an exercise that I had brought them through about naming their company. Are you guys happy where we landed? All right. In fact, this is a picture. As soon as they kind of got excited about that name, I ran to my desk and I typed in Doterra in a URL purchase site, and it came back and it was available. So it was like, yes, okay, for once, something is still available as a URL, okay? But from that, we as you know, we came up with kind of our logo and our wonderful brand, created this wonderful image for our products, and we began to source these wonderful essential oils. And what a beautiful journey it has been. When I was first approached by my partners about joining Doterra, my expectations, and I told them this, is, you know, I would really just like to, in this phase of my career, I'd like to be involved with a company that I can be proud of, that sells products that help people, a company that has integrity and that really cares about people more than they care about profits. And if I could work for a company like that and make a little bit of money to pay for the bills for my wife and my kids, that really I would be a blessed individual, and I really wouldn't want a whole lot more in life. And I need to tell you that my partners kept their end of that bargain with me when I got involved with Doterra, and we've accomplished all those things that I hoped to accomplish when I first started to help my partners with Doterra. But I have to tell you, too, my life and my experiences over the last 10 years have exceeded even my best and most hopeful dreams. So I love Doterra, and I love all of you, and I'm so grateful to be a part of this company that we call Doterra. I love the theme of this convention, you, because this really is about you, and it's about all the people in the world that are being impacted in such a positive way at Doterra. Now, I did have one other little bit of a caveat that I talked to my partners. I said, if I could have all those things, that would be great. But I said, if it's not, there's one more thing I want to do, because before I joined Doterra, I had a kind of a history and a career in developing and marketing dietary supplement products. And I really had a strong belief, still continue to have a strong belief, in teaching people a healthy lifestyle and eating right. And a lot of what I had done before I came to Doterra revolved around kind of supplementing those healthy behaviors and eating and teaching people how to eat correctly with some nice dietary supplement products. And I asked my partners, I said, is there a space for this at Doterra? I know we're going to be about oils, and I was completely willing to go 100% head first into the world of essential oils. I love essential oils. But that led to a conversation that we had about, well, what is our mission as a company? If our mission is to essential oils, but even more important, to help people be more well and create health in the world with essential oils, I said, is there a place for these, some of these dietary supplements? And this is where, from that, as Dr. Hill explained today, emerged this kind of vision of a wellness philosophy, very foundational and basic, but still profound wellness philosophy. And obviously, the essential oils had a place in that, but we as a company decided that, you know, our vision for our product line was going to expand a little bit beyond just essential oils, and that we wanted to provide at least some foundational products that would contribute to overall wellness. And that's where the supplements came in to our product mix. And from that emerged this product. Anybody remember this first product? This was the original Lifelong Wellness Pack that we had. And it was a great product. Since that time, we've worked to improve and enhance that, and we've kind of landed at our Lifelong Vitality Pack, and we've gone through a few iterations, but we have a wonderful, where we are today is, we believe, the best foundational dietary supplement program, and we're talking about overall health and wellness. And I want to say, too, today I'm just kind of the salad before you get the meal, okay? Because Dr. Leverance is going to come out today and go a deeper dive on the science behind these products. Sometimes you're kind. I have people thank me for having created these products, and I have to demur a little bit and explain that I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a biochemist, but I've worked with a lot of very, very smart people throughout my career. And during my career, I've asked those very smart people, as doctors and biochemists, nutritionists, I said, if you were creating your own product, what would you put in it? And they would tell me, and I'd go write it down in my little book that I keep, okay? And I kept asking those people, well, if that's what you would do, why aren't you doing it? Okay? And I never got, I'd say, are the ingredients safe? Yes. Are they effective? Have they been supported with clinical evidence? Of course they have. And that's what you would put in the product. Yes. Well, why don't you put them in the product? And I always got back the same answer, and that was, oh, the ingredients are too expensive. Okay? So I couldn't wait to have an opportunity to create a line of products where we started with the product first, and we ignored how much the ingredients cost, and we created that perfect supplement program, and then we figured out how to sell it afterwards. Okay? And that's the genesis behind our Lifelong Vitality products. And if you want to thank me for asking the obvious question, I'll take that credit. But again, this is reflective of a lot of different scientists that have established the efficacy of these ingredients that we put in the product, okay? But today, I'm going to quickly try to do in 30 minutes what usually I take about 60 minutes to do in the field. And from that 30 minutes, I want you guys to think in your mind today, I want you to take away 30 seconds from what I'm saying, okay? Because all of you, if you're on the Lifelong Vitality product, you really should be able to give a 30-second answer to someone if they say, what's the Lifelong Vitality Pack, all right? So we're going to talk about that today. I'm going to just highlight a few of the main reasons or our formulation approach when we first developed the Lifelong Vitality Pack. But I made a video. I did some research yesterday, and I'm going to show you that video now about a little bit of marketing research I did with you on the Lifelong Vitality Pack yesterday.
Hey, my Doterra friends. We're going to head out on the street this afternoon and do a little marketing research on our Lifelong Vitality Pack. Hey, how are you doing?
You're like my favorites.
Oh,
I
so
know.
that's how you do?
Yeah.
All right.
You and Emily, so you know.
Okay, second try with hair this time. Hopefully we get down the elevator. Hey, do you mind if I ask what Doterra is that all these people are here for?
Yeah, Doterra is essential oils.
What, like, what's that? Do you mind if I ask what this Doterra stuff is?
Doterra, yeah. It's Doterra.
Do?
It's an essential oil company based in Utah.
Do you mind me asking what does that mean? Doterra? Yeah. What are essential oils? No, sorry. Yeah.
Doterra means a gift from the earth.
This you'll notice Doterra, you'll see it because it's
Yeah.
everywhere.
What's an essential oil?
What's an essential
Yeah.
oil? Well, it would be oils that you would use that are all natural for you.
Like fish oils type of thing?
Well, no. You don't know what they are in general?
oils?
It's essential oils.
Smell.
Oh,
And
that's
if you
pretty.
like it, just put on your neck.
Like this?
Like this.
Like this? Like do you eat them or?
No. Put a drop in your hands,
Okay.
rub them together,
All right.
and now inhale.
Like this?
So like,
Oh, that's strong.
there you go. That's how you use essential oil.
Kind of a perfume type of thing?
No, never has getting healthy smelled so good. They do smell wonderful, but as plant derivatives,
Oh.
they are absorbed by your body and allowing it to heal itself.
Doterra?
Doterra is an essential oil company. Have you heard of essential oils?
No, I haven't.
So they're pretty cool. They're basically just concentrated plants. So they
Okay.
have all kinds of different uses.
What is it?
I don't know where to start to tell you. It is the best thing ever in the entire world.
What is it?
Doterra?
Yeah, what is that?
It's only the greatest essential oil company in the world. But it's used for therapeutic, for emotional, for environmental, all sorts of stuff.
Oh.
You can smell them, you can put them on your skin, or you can.
Oh, because everybody smells so good.
Oh, yeah. Doterra?
Yeah.
It's essential oils. Have you ever heard of essential oils?
There's a guy down there who's handing out samples, and I took one, and then he said, "Oh yeah, that's."
How did you get that? That's a new yoga oil.
He was just giving them out, and he had.
That's amazing.
You want it?
Can I smell it? They gave you that?
He was just gave it to me down the street over there, so I don't know. What is it?
If you don't want it, I'll take it from you.
All right, you can have it.
For real?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All
Appreciate
right.
it.
What? Kind of into more like the dietary supplement stuff. Do they do any stuff like that?
Yes, or only one. We have
Really?
only one. Yes, because this is enough.
That's
Yeah.
great. The lifelong.
Lifelong vitality.
Oh, he said it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Sorry. Do you guys sell like supplements too? Because he was going on and on about like a product called LLV. Or
Yeah, LLV is amazing.
I thought that was some like a European handbag brand or something. What is LLV then?
Lifelong vitality.
Total life nutrition. It's true. They formulated them so that your body can really absorb them and use them and.
Oh. Do you guys take it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Every day.
Because he was saying it was like changing his life. He said
#1.
It really did change my life.
it did.
Because I have and it, changed everything. Yeah.
Would you be open to learning more about them?
Sure.
Awesome. Can I get your name and your number and then I'll call you?
Yeah. If I give my business card, is that
I
good?
would love your card.
All right.
So my name, well, you're Doterra. That's your business card.
Yes, I know Rob Young.
Do you?
Yeah.
Would you take a sample, a free gift from Rob Young if he was talking to you?
You are Rob Young.
Look across the street over the camera right there. There's our camera over here. You're going to be in my video tomorrow if you'll let me.
Yeah,
You did a great job.
I just realized it because I saw a picture of you.
Do you mind if I ask what Doterra means? Keep going. Keep going.
Okay, wait.
I'm totally into that.
Wait, this is Rob Young.
Hey, shh. Leave me alone. Keep walking. Keep on walking. Keep move along, ladies. Move along. It's okay. I'm gonna go back to work.
Hey, I need a picture of you.
Okay, let's get a picture. Okay.
Unbelievable.
There. Okay.
Can't believe
Good to
it.
meet you. And I gotta get over. I'm asking what that do.
doTERRA.
Yeah, I
essential
see
oils.
everybody all over.
Rob. Oh, you are you little
Karen,
monkey.
you move it along.
You are too
You
cute.
troublemakers.
What did you really want to ask us and get a
I wanted to know if you use the Lifelong Vitality Pack and if you love it.
Every single day, my whole life for 6 years, and it's changed my life.
I know who you are. Do you have a camera? Take off your glasses.
Turn around
Am I being
and wave to
filmed?
Brandon across the street. Tell me how you feel about the Lifelong Vitality Pack.
Do you want to know why?
Why?
Do you want to know I take it daily?
Yes.
All of your vitamins that you need, plus essential oils, omega-3, 6, and 9, and cellular health.
That's good. All those antioxidants, those
All of
polyphenols,
them,
and
right?
they're good. That's a great product. Good foundation.
It's a good
Okay.
foundation.
I like your new look.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, do you want my? I'll give you my card if you want. Okay.
I can't believe you. That nobody here has that oil.
What's your name?
It's Melanie.
Melanie.
Yeah.
I'm Rob. Rob
Rob,
Young.
Nice to meet you.
Okay. Melanie.
Settle,
Wave
camera.
to my camera guy over there. Okay.
I'm gonna miss lunch because of you.
Oh, go. Oh, okay. I don't know. Sorry.
All right.
Okay, now some of you did pretty good yesterday with your 30 seconds. Some of you didn't even give me 30 seconds. So anyway, think about that. Let me go through and I'm going to talk a little bit about our lifelong vitality program today, okay? And we say our product is going to help you live younger, longer. And it's based on, we go back to this, this philosophy or this theory of what we call compression of morbidity. And what that is, you know, as a people in the world today, we are living longer as far as number of years or lifespan, but we're seeing an unhealthy trend of the earlier and earlier onset of chronic disease in that longer lifespan, okay? And we don't, that's a bad direction that we're moving in. Certainly we want to live longer, but we want to compress that the onset of the chronic diseases. We'd like to compress that into the very, very last few years of our life, okay? Now, scientists, they look at our lifespan and they think we actually, our bodies, our organs, our tissues, in the ideal circumstances, could live maybe 120 plus years, okay? But because of some different issues that impact us, we don't live that long, okay? But the primary driving factor in this earlier and earlier onset of chronic disease goes back to lifestyle choices that we're making, unhealthy lifestyle choices that we're making. And that's why we included, as Dr. Hill explained, in this wellness lifestyle pyramid, the first four foundational steps of this wellness lifestyle include healthy lifestyle choices. And obviously, on that first step of eating right, these beautiful nutrients that are in the Lifelong Vitality Pack kind of start at the bottom, and then they have their influence from the bottom up, and they seem really nice with the essential oils, okay? Now, we could take a long time, and perhaps the One Convention will spend a symposium just on the Lifelong Vitality Pack, but there are a number of we could approach this in a structure-function way, and there's a lot of clinical research that was supporting these ingredients, and we could go deep dive on a lot of those structure-function issues when it comes to our bodies. But I have found over the years that not everybody wants to listen to that, and it doesn't make the best way to share the story with some weird guy on the corner on the street at convention, okay? And really the question that's a little bit harder to ask in my career has been, how do I know if my supplements are working, okay? And that's a fair question, because a lot of the benefits of supplements are going to help us live longer, but the question is, if I'm not feeling a difference, how do I know that they're working? So we focused on that when we created the Lifelong Vitality Pack. We said, are there things we can do in a healthy way to help people feel more vitality in the short term as we're helping them with their long-term lifespan, okay? And I usually begin my Lifelong Vitality presentation with this question to the audience and says, would you like to feel younger? And if so, what makes you feel old? And I've done this around the world, and you know what? The responses are always the same. Okay, it's a common thing that people say as they start to age. Okay, and most common in those responses have to do with increased discomforts, aches and pains that we have as we get a little bit older, or as we practice unhealthy lifestyles, and also this general lack of energy or vigor or vitality. Okay, so when we formulated the Lifelong Vitality Program, we said we're going to focus on some of those things, those responses that are common that we'd find in any average group of people when it comes to kind of the complaints they have as they begin to age. Okay, and the Lifelong Vitality Pack, as you know, contains these 3 products: Alpha CRS, Z Omega, and the Microplex VMZ. Okay, but I want to just specifically address some of these issues, these higher level feeling issues today. The first is I have more discomforts as I age, and I'm going to explain this quickly, and Dr. Leverance is going to come out and go a little bit deeper dive on this. But discomfort is actually a perception that we have from some type of stimulus to our cells. Okay, so pain is actually in response to a stimulus that we call, or a response that we call inflammation. Okay, this is just a simple cartoon of a cell. When our cells encounter some type of a stimulus, messages are sent to the DNA, the nucleus of our cell. This is a very, oversimplifying this, but then there's messages that go back out. There's a response to that. And as we age, there are different stressors that can accelerate that aging process and can increase kind of those aches that we have and those pains as we get a little bit older, or as we aren't following good healthy practices. Okay, so there's a very common stressor that's associated with this accelerating the aging process that we call free radical stress or oxidative stress on our cells. So I hope you all know this, but what is a free radical? All right, is this a free radical? It's not, right? Free radicals are molecules that have one or more unpaired electrons, and that makes them unstable. If you remember, your molecules like their electrons to be in pairs. So a free radical molecule, when it comes in contact with another stable molecule, can steal or rip that molecule from that stable molecule, turning it into a free radical molecule, and that leads to a destructive chain reaction of what we call oxidation. All right, and when that happens on a cellular level, that causes some problems. Now, where do they come from? Well, there's outside sources of free radicals that come from even the sunlight that we're exposed to, but from different pollutions and toxins that we might take into our bodies. But there are also internal or intrinsic sources of free radicals. In fact, the greater stress in your body, oxidative stress in your body, comes from the internal production of free radical molecules in our cells. And that's because in our cells we have little structures, that we call the mitochondria. And the mitochondria are the little engines in our cells that produce a chemical that we call ATP. In the mitochondria, we combine the oxygen we breathe and the food that we eat, and we produce this chemical called ATP. And ATP is an energy chemical that drives all energy, all action in your life, okay? And that's a great thing. But just like a car engine, there's an exhaust to that process, and that exhaust comes in the form of free radical molecules. And again, when that is happening in your cells, and it can damage and put oxidative stress on your cells, and particularly we want to be concerned about the damage that it might be doing to the DNA in the nucleus of our cells. And if we don't keep that oxidative stress in check, then we get to this chronic burn of oxidative stress in our bodies, and it can accelerate aging and lead to some of these other issues, including the discomfort that we get when we start to age. Okay? Now, that's happening in all our cells all the time to all of us. It's kind of a depressing thought, right? But do you think nature wouldn't provide a solution to that? We have to have ATP to live, and an exhaust is a byproduct of that chemistry. Well, of course, nature would provide an answer, and that answer comes in the form of some stable molecules that we call antioxidants. And antioxidants have electrons to spare. And when they come in contact with free radicals, they share their electrons, they neutralize those free radicals, and everything's fine, okay? Then we avoid some of that damage and that stress from those free radicals in our cells. Now, just like free radicals, Antioxidants have outside sources and inside sources, okay? We depend on to get antioxidants from the foods that we eat, especially our fruits and vegetables, okay? Milkshakes aren't high sources of antioxidants, all right? Unless you put some in there, I guess. But our body also depends on our own internal production of certain classes of antioxidants, okay? So what can we do to balance that oxidative stress in our cells? Well, I hope it's obvious the first thing we can do is eat more fresh fruits and vegetables, okay? It's the colorful fruits and vegetables that we consume usually have high levels of these wonderful variety of antioxidants, and integrating fruits and vegetables in a large way into your diet is a great investment you can make, both in your longevity and also your short-term vitality, okay? But we know that's not always possible. It's also prudent to consider using a dietary supplement that has high level of these important antioxidants. And the Lifelong Vitality Pack represents a super antioxidant cocktail of some very important classes of very powerful antioxidants, okay? And those are or outside sources of antioxidants, but we also have an ingredient in the Alpha CRS product. It's an extract of milk thistle that has been standardized to an active compound that we call silymarin. And why that's exciting, although it does function as an antioxidant, it also works to upregulate the production in the liver of a ubiquitous internal antioxidant that we call glutathione. And that's a very important antioxidant that's used all the time in all of our cells. So that's why we've included that extract of milk thistle. Now, Dr. Hill talked today about some essential oils that have, one of their properties is that they function as antioxidants. And that's why we included the essential oils in the Z Omega product. One of the reasons is because they're very powerful antioxidants, especially that clove. Clove is one of the more powerful antioxidants that we can use safely internally. If you look at the sum of the antioxidant capacity in the Lifelong Vitality Pack, if you're taking the whole thing on a daily basis, you're getting the equivalent of over 12 servings of fruits and vegetables in your daily consumption of the Lifelong Vitality Pack. So that's a huge amount, a great insurance policy, along with eating lots of fruits and vegetables, that you're balancing that oxidative stress in your cells. And if we can lower that stress on our cells, then we can help lower that defensive response in our cells. Okay, the next thing we do in this aging equation is we said, what could we do nutritionally? Is there something we can do to help mediate that defensive response? And there are things we can do. We know that through different nutrients, we can help mediate that response. Let's go back to our cartoon of the cell. Around each cell, we have what we call a cell membrane. Okay, the cell membrane keeps the water outside of the cell from the water inside the cell, okay? Keeps the activity separate. Well, in addition to being a barrier, that cell membrane also functions as a communication portal. And when our cells have a stimulus, including oxidative stress, they send messages to our cells, and then there's a response, okay? So they act kind of as the guards or the communication messengers in each one of our cells. Now, there are these cell membranes are made up of fats or lipids, and a particular class of fats called the essential fatty acids, all right? And some of those fatty acids, their job is to say, hey, they cry wolf, and others say calm down. Again, Dr. Leverance is going to go into this in greater detail. So what can we do? Well, we know there are certain foods that have some of these healthy essential fatty acids, and usually we find those in fish. And so we put fish oil essential fatty acids in the form of omega-3 fatty acids in our Z Omega product. We also put some plant-based essential fatty acids in the Z Omega product to help, again, mediate that response, all right? The other thing, those essential oils, as well as functioning as antioxidants, also have been studied and shown to help mediate that normal healthy response in our cells to the different types of stressors. Now, there's another important ingredient that we have in Alpha CRS that comes from a plant called Boswellia serrata. Now, where have you heard that name before? Okay, we have Boswellia family of plants from which we get our essential oils. Well, this is their Indian cousin. Okay, this is Boswellia serrata. Now, we're not getting the essential oils from this plant. We're getting instead an active compound that we call boswellic acids from the Boswellia serrata plant. And those boswellic acids have also been studied to help, they've been demonstrated to show they help mediate that response, and they're great to be used for muscle and joint issues and muscle and joint support, okay? So all of those antioxidants and those other ingredients that we pull together are a great way then we can look at lowering that oxidative stress, helping mediate that defensive response, and that gives us that great benefit that we hear so often of people who use lifelong vitality, that they have kind of less aches, less pains that are associated kind of with that unhealthy lifestyle and aging, okay? So that's the first thing we did when we went to design this program. Then we went to the next most common complaint that we might hear when we ask people if they feel older, and that is they have just this less vitality. They have less energy, okay? Now, I want you to just quickly close your eyes. I want you to imagine the last time it was Wednesday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you just were really tired, okay? Think in your mind, what are you going to do, okay? Now, walk into the restroom at your office, look in the mirror. Now, open your eyes, okay? Did this match any of what you're saying? So this is a real common problem, not just as we age, but even young people have this issue, okay? We have this overall kind of malaise that's set in our modern world, that we just have we're all tired and we're fatigued and we're run down, okay? And what causes that? Well, there's some lifestyle issues, okay? I put these in two categories. There's stressors like no sleep, and we get sick, we have toxicity in our environment, okay? Again, poor diet, no exercise, being overweight. Obviously, all those things can make us feel less energy, okay? But we also have some things that are associated with aging when it comes to our mitochondria function. And by the way, those issues are accelerated if we're not managing our healthy lifestyle choices on the other side of this chart. So let's go back and talk about the mitochondria again. Okay, remember, in the mitochondria, we're producing this energy chemical that we call ATP. As we age, what happens is we have fewer mitochondria per cell. They're less efficient at producing ATP, and the exhaust from those mitochondria can become more toxic as we age and as we're unhealthy, okay? So the next thing we did after we put that great blend of those cellular longevity ingredients in the alpha CRSs, we put together a collection of nutrients that we know help with the chemistry of that ATP production in cells, okay? And we put that in a blend that we call our cellular energy blend. And if you look at each one of these ingredients, you've probably seen these and heard about these in the news, seen these in other products. But before Alpha CRS Plus, you probably never saw a product with all of these ingredients at these levels in any product. That makes this product very, very unique, okay? When we show this product to people that are familiar with supplements and they see that list of ingredients at those levels, they're quite amazed that we put those ingredients in the product. I put the amounts on here because this is significant, and I want to tell you, we don't fairy dust. In the industry, we call it fairy dusting. We don't fairy dust our product with these ingredients. These are at levels. When you look at the clinical studies that show these help, these are the levels in those clinical studies, okay? Sometimes people will add a little bit just for the label claim. We don't do this, and this is a very powerful blend of nutrients that help in that chemistry of that ATP production in your mitochondria. So we focused around that mitochondria health with these ingredients. Now, part of that complaint that I don't have a lot of energy, and I'm going to list this as a separate, it's kind of like, I will call this mind energy, okay? Said, you know what, I'm not sharp like I used to be. I lose my keys more often than I did before, okay? And we put an additional ingredient in that group of ingredients for the mitochondria for mind energy, and we added an extract of ginkgo biloba, okay? And ginkgo biloba has been shown through many clinical trials to help support memory and focus. It's also an adaptogen, help as a kind of an anti-stress ingredient, and it's also neuroprotective. okay? And that's significant, okay? And I'm going to talk about another benefit that comes from taking lifelong vitality that's related kind of to this whole area of neuroprotection, okay? But we added that ginkgo biloba, so you'd also, including, in addition to that physical energy, you're going to get kind of that focus and mind energy. And that, again, this brings me to the next issue, and that is a lot of people who don't have a lot of vitality also complain, like, honestly, if I'm honest with you, I'm kind of feeling a little bit kind of down all the time, all right? And people that have taken the Lifelong Vitality product often report that, you know what, my mood and my outlook is a lot brighter. And they say, why would that happen? Okay, well, let's talk a little bit quickly about this beautiful picture of your brain. Your brain is actually made up of fat cells, of lipids, okay? As we take those antioxidants, we're protecting those lipids from oxidizing, okay? And we take some of those other nutritional factors, we can keep the metabolism going and supporting that brain function. Now, we knew that this was one benefit of the Lifelong Vitality program when we designed it, but we were a little bit surprised, honestly, as people started to use the product, how often we heard the profound effects when it comes to people's mood and their kind of brightness when it comes to taking the Lifelong Vitality program. We expected that, but because there are a lot of scientific reasons for that, but that has been a wonderful benefit that people have as we've brought those nutrients together. We're happily surprised that this was even a stronger benefit than we had anticipated. Now, those mind energy ingredients, those mitochondrial ingredients, we want you feeling, again, young, hip, ready to go again, okay? But this is not our goal with this product, all right? Because what's as important as what goes into the Lifelong Vitality program is what we don't put in that, okay? And I could put some stuff in there and get you all feeling pretty pepped up, but there's a downside to that if we put those unhealthy ingredients in the product. So we don't include stimulants in the products. We don't pack it with sugar for some immediate energy that comes from that kind of boost, okay? These ingredients are for long-term vitality, okay? This is a healthy approach to increasing vitality. Now, there are these other wonderful essential nutrients that you get in the product. When we call something an essential nutrient, we mean it's essential and it can't be made in your body. You need to get it from the food that you eat, okay? So you get essential fatty acids and those wonderful essential vitamins and minerals in our product that are also critical for that energy production. Now, just a note on the ingredients, essential nutrients that we use in our product, okay? They are both standardized and bioavailable. Standardized meaning if I take a plant extract or a food extract, and if I don't standardize it to some type of marker in it to make sure I have its activity, it could vary in its benefits to you from batch to batch to batch. So we use ingredients that have been standardized to the active components of those ingredients. The other thing is we include ingredients that we say are bioavailable, meaning they're in a format that your body can recognize them, like they recognize them in food, and they can be absorbed easily and metabolized easier in your body, okay? Now, if we get people on a good foundational program of essential nutrients, there are lots of great things that can happen, okay? We know it can support a healthy immune system. We know it can help people sleep better, all right? We know it can have you have more healthy skin and more healthy hair. President company excluded, but okay, I got healthy skin though, okay? And that leads us back to where I started. We could take more time today and we could go deep dive into all these other structure function benefits in your body that comes from optimal nutrition, all right? And we'll do that at another time. But again, the reason I wanted to emphasize these feeling benefits today is because that's usually how we want to start as we explain the Lifelong Vitality Pack with somebody who hasn't used that before, okay? And it's been a great experience for us, and I expected this to happen, but it's been personally satisfying to have so many people come up to me on an ongoing basis and tell me how their lives they have more vitality, and tell me of all the wonderful, great things that they experience by taking the Lifelong Vitality program. All right, and I hope everybody here takes the program. Now, one other thing for your 30-second speech, your elevator speech that you're formulating in your mind today. If you were to go out and source or go buy products that have all these ingredients at the levels that we have them in our Lifelong Vitality program, if you were to cobble together that type of a program, you would be spending in excess of $250, probably in excess of $300, okay? But we present these products to you in such a way that if you were to buy those products individually, you'd save $100 or more dollars by getting these ingredients in the Lifelong Vitality program. But we didn't stop there, as you know. We put all of those products together and said, we want everybody taking these every day the rest of their life. This is going to be foundational at Doterra. And that's where you get these products at the low price when you buy them as a kit. And as you know, we also have a way that you can add other products, like Dr. Hill talked about today, TerraZyme, PB Assist Plus, and other products to this foundational program. If you'll commit to that program, we've also made it affordable for you to add other products to create foundational supplement program at Doterra that will be unparalleled in the industry anywhere and at the lowest price that you can get anywhere. And this is a fantastic product, okay? Now, one final feature when we talk about the Lifelong Vitality program is that we have a money-back guarantee that goes with that product. And that is, as you share these products with your friends, your family, and if they have any hesitation to try it, you can explain that, look, if you don't feel better, if you really honestly don't feel better, more vitality after 30 days of taking this program, you can return the product, they'll give you your money back, all right? Now, of course, we've honored that in some cases, but we literally have sold millions of boxes of the Lifelong Vitality Pack, and rarely do we have people return it for this 30-day guarantee. And that's a testament, I think, to the great ingredients in this product, okay? All right, it's time for your quiz, okay? You got on the elevator, you push the button, and then Pam walks on, okay? This is Pam, and she says, you know what? You always seem to be so peppy and energetic. What's your secret, okay? You got 30 seconds. What are you gonna say, okay? We'll start with how you feel, right? It's like, oh, Pam, I've got to tell you, I'm taking the greatest new product from the most awesome company, okay? It's this dietary supplement product. It's given me energy. I don't have the aches that I used to have, and I just still feel so great on it. You really got to try this. And you know what? I've tried other supplements before. I tried to make a program like this. I've spent triple the money that I on this product. This product priced at a great price. And you know what, Pam? You ought to try it. Because if you don't feel better, and you'll feel better, but if you don't, they'll give you your money back. So what do you got to lose? Put down that coffee. Take my Lifelong Vitality for a couple weeks. See how you feel. Okay, Pam? Ding. Elevator's over. Okay? Did I convince her? I don't know. Pam then takes the product. She comes to your Doterra meeting. She signs up. She's crossing as a diamond next convention on your front line. It's that easy, right? Anyway, this product is fundamental to our mission at Doterra, and that's to help people live more healthy. Again, if you're not taking this product, consider taking this product. If you take this product and love this product, keep taking it. It's a wonderful addition to our product line. Again, I'm grateful to be here this afternoon. You guys are great. We're going to welcome out Dr. Leverance, and you're going to listen to him. He's the doctor. I'm just the guy that answered the obvious question that why doesn't someone create a program like this? But anyway, you guys are great. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Dr. Daniel Leverance.
Well, greetings. It is really good to be here. It truly is. It's a little bit bright, so I apologize. I can't see you very well. That is a super disorienting way of walking onto the stage, because when I give lectures and things like that to colleagues in my residence, it's a whole lot of silence. You stand up, no one says anything. You give your talk, no one says anything. You sit down, no one says anything. And so this is a little bit disorienting, but much appreciated. And you guys don't even know me. This could be the most boring talk you've heard so far. But I guess you just have a good attitude, so. Okay, so we're gonna jump into this. You know what this is about? This is some of the science behind the mechanisms and effects of the lifelong vitality. Obviously, there's no way that we can go into every single detail. I really want you to know, I think it's fair to you that you know a little bit about who is standing up on the stage talking to you, and I really want to show you my family because they are absolutely amazing. So on the left, that's my son River. He's about to turn 6. He loves everything. He is a super genius boy. He loves to ride his mountain bikes and get them dirty and muddy, and he's always impressing us with what he can do on this little pump track that we have near our house. There in the middle is my incredibly beautiful and amazing wife, Katie, who many of you probably really do know. And our youngest daughter, Zoe, there, who's about to turn 2. And there on the right, that's Eliza. She's our middle daughter. She'll turn 4 in January. She's dressed up like a NASA astronaut, because we all love space, for the last Halloween. Just a couple more pictures. We're so fortunate. We live in East Tennessee, in Knoxville, Tennessee. It is paradise there. And we live really, really close to the Smoky Mountains, so we get to go play in the mountains and the streams and the rivers all the time. And there's River and Eliza throwing rocks and playing near the stream. And there's Eliza and I on a recent little daddy-daughter date. So anyway, I want you to know just a couple of really basic things about me. I'm an emergency physician, a board-certified emergency physician. I work at a major academic and trauma medical center. And I am honored to do what I do. I take it very seriously. I hope that you know that. I take it very seriously. I see it as a critical, necessary service to our community. I believe in it very much. And I have pretty strong academic inclinations. I spend a lot of time teaching residents and fellows from other specialties. I hope soon to spend a fair amount of time developing a emergency medicine residency program at our hospital. And the reason I'm telling you this is not because I'm trying to tote my credentials. In fact, I have the opposite sort of instincts here. But really just because I want you to know one simple thing, which is that I'm committed to my profession and I'm committed to my job. And that sets up the contradiction, because on the flip side of that, I have from the very beginning, even from when I was in college trying to decide if I even wanted to go to medical school, I've had this awareness of the inadequacies of the House of Medicine. And I don't mean to imply that it has a fatal or a fundamental flaw, just simply it does not tell the whole story when it comes to health. It cannot tell the whole story when it comes to health. And to that extent, I have long maintained an interest in, a passion for, sort of a more cumulative, comprehensive, cooperative approach to health that includes far more than just what the medical field and prescription pads and procedures can provide. So that's one of the reasons Katie and I have had felt so comfortably involved in Doterra, I suppose. We are so thankful for their contributions to health, their evidence-based approach to their contributions to health, all the amazing health journeys we've been able to see in our time with Doterra. And I really am appreciative that it provides me this other world that I can inhabit from time to time that is really far away from the blood and guts and pus and violence of the emergency department. So I'm really thankful to be here. Now, I think we probably need to just go ahead and jump into what we're talking about. Katie and I get to teach a lot about a lot of different things, and we love doing that. Without a question, one of the things that we get the most questions about is the LLV. There's just a lot of curiosity about it, a lot of questions come up. So I have spent a lot of time digging into these products just to understand What is in them? How does it work? What's the chemistry? What's the biology? Is there anything from an evidentiary standpoint to substantiate just this preponderance of anecdote? You hear so much. People describe such positive experiences with the LLV, and the scientist in me, and I am a consummate nerd, I am just a transcendent nerd, the scientist in me just wants to know how and why and kind of get into the machine of it. So a couple quick caveats. The first thing is we're not going to spend a lot of time doing what I call product differentiation. So I'm not going to be trying to sort of describe what is fundamentally different about this product as compared to another product or anything like that. I really am just here to sort of be your geek, and I'll be the most committed geek you've ever seen. The other caveat is, as Rob was alluding to, there are hours and hours and hours and hours of material when it comes to really elaborating, I think, to a justifiable extent on the LLV and a lot of its constituents. And so we just can't talk about every single constituent. We can't do a deep dive literature review on every single one here. So necessarily, I'm going to have to leave some things out, unfortunately. So if you really, really want to hear about boswellic acids, something I'm passionate about, we're not going to have time to go into that, or curcumin, or some of these other ingredients. So what I've done instead is to try and pick what I consider to be the highest yield, I think the most critical elements to the biology here and to the biochemistry, and I'm trying to really drill down on that so you can walk away with some usable information. So the first thing I'm going to do really quick is to try and reorient our definitions a little bit, because I'm going to use a word here in a minute that is associated with a lot of baggage, and I want to try my best to eliminate that baggage so we can get ourselves all on the same page, and that word is nutrition. So when I say that word, I think it conjures up hundreds, if not thousands, of different definitions and impressions and gestalt emotions. Some people love that word, some people hate that word. Some people want to stay as far away from it as they can. Some people want to come as close to it as they can. To some it means carbs, other it means calories. To some it means muscle mass or their waistline or their feelings about their physique and all that stuff. And there is no singular definition of nutrition. It just doesn't exist. But to the extent that there's so much variability in this room, I want to try and get us to coalesce around a singular definition, because it really does need to provide a context moving forward. So this is where we kind of jump into it. So this is where I need you to really kind of dig in and pay attention. So this is a bit of a mouthful, and this is my definition of nutrition, which is the dry, rather soulless, mechanical act, having nothing to do with emotions, nothing to do with your taste buds, just the mechanical act of getting the right nutrients and inputs into your cells and tissues in order to optimize their function, okay? So, in that context, you're not feeding your waistline or anything like that. You're feeding the individual cells of your body in order to optimize their function. You're feeding the cells that comprise your neurologic systems and your cardiovascular systems and things like that. And you want them to do their jobs as optimally as possible. And for that to be the case, you have to optimize their nutrition, their inputs, their environment, and so on. So optimal nutrition in my book can be redefined as cellular nutrition. So if you're able to optimize the nutrition at the cellular level, then and only then, I believe, you have the greatest chance of optimizing the function of your essential biology, okay? So I say that because that is the context that we have to embed a really thorough understanding of what the LLV is up to, because it does tackle a fundamentally different target than what you might be used to hearing about, okay? So, a lot to say, we got to move on. I'm going to jump first into the microplex and the Z omega. And the reason for that is, number one, I think it provides a really nice template to sort of highlight some of these physiological principles. And the second is they're a little easier to understand. They're pretty simple at their core. And I do want to try and relieve you of the burden of feeling like there's anything inherently complicated about these products, because really and truly, if we can kind of come back to the surface here, at their core, this is a multivitamin and an omega-3 supplement. And obviously there's a lot of really interesting stuff that's thrown in to kind of add to the uniqueness and the potency of them, but at their core it's a multivitamin and an omega-3 supplement. So we'll just kind of start there and expand. The first concept I really want to nail down for you is the critical importance of balance when it comes to cellular physiology. So in a lot of ways and in a lot of circumstances, your body is way more interested in having balance of its inputs and materials and nutrients and things like that, rather than the absolute amount. The absolute amount matters insofar as you might have way too many or way too few, but as long as you're within those physiologic parameters, then it's really, really interested in balance, okay? The problem is, I think it's probably not too far away from obvious. The problem is a lot of us don't spend a lot of time within those reasonable physiological parameters. So we'll begin with the Z omega. It's a nice kind of starting point here. So as I said, at its core, the omega-3, or the Z omega is really just an omega-3 supplement. And that's important for a couple of distinct reasons. And the first is that omega-3s are good for you in their own right. It's pretty simple. They're just good for you. But way more importantly, and this is where I want to spend the majority of our time, the omega-3, or what's more important than that, is the fact that your body is unfortunately accustomed to a profoundly lopsided intake of omega-6 fatty acids as compared to omega-3s. So let's elaborate. Your body is way more interested in that ratio than it is, again, in the absolute amount of either. So both omega-6s and 3s cannot be made endogenously. They cannot be manufactured by your body. They are dependent on what you get through your diet, okay? So omega-6s, the problem with them is that they're way too easy to get. They're in basically everything that the average American eats day in, day out, multiple times a day. They're in most vegetable oils, they're in grain-fed or kind of cheaper meats, they're in conventional eggs, they're in processed food, they're everywhere, okay? So you can get way too many of them totally unintentionally. By comparison, omega-3s are substantially harder to get. They're not impossible by any stretch of the imagination, but they come from more unique sources. So the two most physiologically powerful and important omega-3s are EPA and DHA, and they primarily come from marine sources, things like salmon, tuna, herring, mackerel, anchovies, things like that. I love salmon. I eat it as much as possible, but it's kind of unique. ALA is also another important omega-3. It's a little easier to get, but it definitely trends more towards the hippie spectrum of foods, where you're eating lots of walnuts and flax seeds and hemp seeds and things like that, and plus some excellent vegetables like Brussels sprouts, kale, and spinach. It's a good one. It's not quite as powerful as EPA and DHA, but it's a good one nonetheless. So here's where the consequences start to accumulate. We get a ton of omega-6 fatty acids totally unintentionally and involuntarily, just by eating sort of like a regular human being here in America. And even if you're trying to get omega-3 fatty acids, it's still hard to get enough. So we're left with this bereft, lopsided ratio where we get 10, 15, 20, or even 30 times more omega-6s than omega-3s, when your body really wants that to be a balanced, neutral ratio. So we are way out of balance if we eat like the average American, okay? And again, I keep putting emphasis on diet because we don't make these. They are completely dependent on what we put in our bodies. So it really is what you're eating that matters so much. So if we fall out of this neutral ratio, real consequences start to accumulate. And if you're curious about where on the spectrum of falling out of balance things start to accumulate, it's when we get to around a ratio of 3 or 4 or 5 to 1. That's where the studies start to indicate that we start to actually see measurable consequences. And as you can see, we're way more than that. So one of the consequences is that omega-6s and omega-3s both require access to the same metabolic enzymes. And if you have 15 times more 6s than 3s in the game, then it is an unfair competition. So imagine like a soccer game where you have 15 players playing against one player on the other team. You obviously know who's going to win. So this sets up a real disadvantage for omega-3s, and even if you do sprinkle in some 3s kind of on top of this, they're not able to get access to their metabolic pathways the way that they need to, and it impairs their effectiveness, it impairs their utilization. Probably more important than that, though, is this, and this language is intentional, okay? And I'll define the terms here in a minute. But excessive or disproportionate omega-6 consumption invariably, inevitably, and obligatorily, just based on the physiology, leads to dramatically increased expression of pro-inflammatory cytokines. So cytokines, you may have already heard, you may already know this, cytokines are little signal molecules or messenger molecules that are sent out to send messages of a variety of different natures. Pro-inflammatory cytokines are little signal molecules that are sent out saying, hey, there's a problem here, we need to recruit some help to the area. And so inappropriate or excessive omega-6 consumption compared to omega-3 consumption, again, just based on the chemistry, absolutely obligatorily results in the release of way more pro-inflammatory cytokines than we need. And this sets up a real problem. In this case, these messenger molecules are bombarding your body incessantly with what are functionally distress signals. They are constantly, non-stop sparking inflammatory cascades, keeping them going like a perpetual motion machine. And we generally eat 2 to 5 times a day, and if we eat like we like normally do, then what happens is we basically are just volunteering our hand to keeping this motion machine, this merry-go-round of bad physiology just spinning and spinning and spinning. Now, acute inflammation is a good thing, okay, if it's appropriately activated and if it's proportionate to whatever the problem is and if it's appropriately terminated on time. Chronic inflammation, though, is a completely different story. It is exhausting to your body, it is beleaguering, and it is confusing, and the consequences are massive. A really good way of exemplifying this is by talking about the metabolic syndrome, which is a term that many of you may know, some of you may not, especially in your encounters with physicians. The reason for that isn't because we're trying to keep the metabolic syndrome from you, but because we generally try to be a little more specific with our patients and talking about some of the individual diseases that kind of lay within the world of the metabolic syndrome. But you would recognize this. This is diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol and lipid derangements, vascular disease, a strongly increased predisposition to cancer, obesity and weight problems, cognitive dysfunction, and even poor emotional health and behavioral health. And chronic inflammation is not the only cause of the metabolic syndrome. I don't want you to get that impression, but it is a cause, and it is a consequence of it. It is part and parcel with it. It is just part of the milieu, so to speak, of the metabolic syndrome. On top of that, and this is really a key point, your immunologic system and function and your inflammatory system and function are deeply and inextricably intertwined, okay? They are not exactly the same thing, but they rely on a lot of the same machinery, and there is so much overlap, it's sort of like what we just had with the eclipse. It's like a near total eclipse, okay? If you were to do the Venn diagram of the inflammatory system and the immunologic system, they would overlap in a pretty profound way. So your inflammatory and your immunologic systems are inextricably interrelated. And so if you have chronic, inappropriately activated, and disproportionate inflammation going on, if your inflammatory cascades are just spinning and spinning and spinning, then that takes a real toll on your immune system and function. And so in practice, both in practice and in terms of the evidence, when you have when you're subjected to a chronic inflammatory state, we consider you to be functionally immunocompromised, meaning that you have a impaired immunologic response to injury and infection. On top of that, your immune system gets a little confused about what it's doing and why it's doing it, and you have an increased predisposition to certain rheumatologic diseases and conditions. And then as Rob was indicating, you also have a lot of chronic pain and chronic fatigue that doesn't necessarily have a specific name or diagnosis or ICD-10 code associated with it, but you feel it nonetheless, okay? So real consequences to chronic inflammation. Now, I just want to pause for a minute and make sure that you're not getting the impression that a lopsided ratio of omega-6s to 3s is the only cause of chronic inflammation, because it's not. And I also don't want to give you the impression that if you just balance that ratio, whether it's because you eat a bunch of salmon or you take the Z-omega, then all of these problems will go away, because neither of those are true statements. But I definitely want you to understand that this is a concrete example of a concrete phenomenon with concrete consequences, okay? All right. So you've probably deduced the rest. The Z-omega is attempting to try and balance this ratio, both by providing an excellent stream of omega-3 fatty acids, but also it needs to work in conjunction with you voluntarily decreasing your consumption of omega-6 fatty acids and try and bring us as close to this neutral 1-to-1 ratio as we can possibly get. That is what the body yearns for, and that's what we want to give it. So just like the consequences of a lopsided ratio are concrete, so are the benefits of a balanced ratio. And you could probably get these based on the pathophysiology that we just discussed. So to a certain extent, we see reduced triglyceride levels in people taking omega-3 fatty acids or have a higher increased intake of omega-3 fatty acids. It sort of depends on the person and their age and other diseases and things like that. But more importantly, as importantly, or I guess depending on who you are, more importantly, we also see a general tuning down of this chronic inflammatory state, and the benefits are pretty widespread, including what we have observed as a reduced risk for developing cardiovascular disease and cerebrovascular disease. And again, the degree to which it reduces your risk is extremely variable, but we have definitely observed that risk. We see improved mental health, behavioral health, cognitive health. We also see improved bone and joint health and reductions in this admittedly vague but profoundly impactful nonetheless situation where you have chronic pain and chronic fatigue, okay? So I hope you can kind of see what's happening here. This is cellular nutrition. This has nothing specifically to do with your waistline or your resting heart rate or any other sort of surface level marker of your health or fitness. This, instead, is a pure attempt to optimize the function of your essential biology at its most fundamental level. Okay, so a fundamentally different approach. So we're going to try and blow through this because we don't have a lot of time, but so it is with vitamins and minerals, and this is where we're going to try and keep things a little short because this is much easier to understand. Vitamins. We've all heard, that you should eat your vitamins, take your vitamins, eat so you get your vitamins, and I think we all sort of, even if we don't take vitamins, I think we all sort of intuit the underlying importance of doing this. And the reason for that is that these are essential ingredients for all these biochemical reactions and pathways and cellular processes that are constantly, every nanosecond of your existence, occurring not on the macro level, but on the micro level, at the cellular level, okay? So you probably didn't realize it, but if you're taking vitamins, you are living out what I'm talking about, which is trying to tend to your cellular health, okay? It is a beautiful example of tending to your cellular health. All right, now just like your body likes your omega-3s and your omega-6s in a certain ideal ratio, it likes the same thing when it comes to vitamins and minerals. So your physiology really does have a defined preference for optimal ranges of each of these. And we have every reason to expect that your cellular biology has the highest likelihood of working optimally when these nutrients are available in these balanced levels, in these reasonable levels. And it's with that attitude that doTERRA's formulated the microplex, and this is something I appreciate so much. They have really eliminated that more is always better sort of approach to the formulation here, and instead they've prioritized balance. So I cannot tell you from just a sheer, just raw physiologic perspective how much I appreciate that. The second thing I want to take just a brief moment to explain is the importance of how these vitamins and minerals and nutrients are presented to the body. This isn't going to take a long time. I think you'll get the point here in just a moment. When you eat an orange, you're taking in more than just vitamin C, even though that's what the orange is sort of legendary for providing, okay? When you eat blueberries, you're taking in more than just its antioxidants and its fiber. When you take in when you take in carrots, you're taking in a lot more than just vitamin K, even though, again, that's what sort of steals the headlines when it comes to carrots. When you bite into an apple, you are obtaining a cloud of vitamins and minerals and enzymes and coenzymes and cofactors and catalysts and fiber. All of these things contribute to your body actually recognizing it as food and assimilating it and using it appropriately, okay? It helps it adhere to the digestive lining of your intestinal tract, helps it be absorbed, recognized, utilized exactly the way that it's supposed to. So this is why I think doTERRA's taken the extra time to appreciate the chemistry here, and they've really prioritized formulating these in a way and presenting them to the body in a way that your body's actually going to recognize it as food instead of just distilling it down to the molecule, filling a capsule, and handing it to you, okay? So really, really important. Now, I've reserved the rest of the time for Alpha CRS. And admittedly, I'm going to go a little bit long here. I hope that doesn't offend anyone. I think we were running ahead of schedule before. But this is where we get this is where we get the most questions, and this is where we have the most curiosity, and this is the one I find most fascinating and unique. So this is where I really want to kind of park and talk about it. So doTERRA refers to the alpha CRS as its cellular vitality complex, which is really a nod towards its target, which is the cell. And this is one of the purest examples of an all-out effort to optimize cellular nutrition and cellular health as I've really yet seen. And that's one of the main reasons why I like talking about it and teaching about it so much. So if you look up the product information page on the Alpha CRS, it says it does tons and tons and tons of things. And so I don't want to do a discredit to that by simplifying it too much, but I have definitely found that if we can kind of distill it down to two overriding sort of primary objectives, then it makes it a whole lot easier to digest and a whole lot easier to understand. So the Alpha CRS, yes, it does a lot of things, but I think it's safe to say the two primary objectives are these. One is to enhance cellular energy production, and the other is to defend the cell, particularly against oxidative damage and oxidative stress. So we're going to talk about cellular energy production first. And to do that fairly, we have to kind of differentiate between two concepts, and we're going to circle back to it in a minute. The first is exogenous provision of energy, which is not an ideal circumstance, because what that means is essentially you're providing sources of energy sort of as a stimulant to your body that it cannot and does not manufacture itself. And it's sort of like caffeine. Caffeine's a good example. You take it in, it tickles some receptors for a few minutes or a few hours. It makes you feel like your body's kind of coursing with energy for a little bit. And then, unfortunately, it's not sustainable. It leaves you kind of depleted afterwards. There's nothing substantive about it. In contradistinction to that, you have this endogenous production of energy, which is basically the simple fact that your body comes already well equipped with profoundly powerful mechanisms to create and manufacture its own energy, and I think you would agree with me that that's a preferable place to apply our efforts. That's where we want to work. So your body has all sorts of mechanisms to create energy, tons and tons of different mechanisms to create energy, but without question, one of the most important is the energy production pathway that's found in the mitochondria. These really are your first line bioreactors. They're near ubiquitous. They're in virtually every single cell of your body. And they produce energy, as Rob was alluding to, through a very complex, elegant series of biochemical reactions that, just for the sake of simplicity, so we don't have to describe every reaction, this has a name. This series of biochemical reactions has a name, and it's called the mitochondrial respiration. Okay? This is a really good example of a process that's highly input dependent. So for mitochondrial respiration to function optimally, your bioreactors, the mitochondria, have to be supplied with the correct inputs and the correct machinery, and ideally both in abundance. And that's where the alpha CRS really kind of goes to work. So, as Rob was alluding to earlier, and by the way, I'm so thankful that he did his talk the way that he did, because I think he laid really an effective and beautiful kind of framework and foundation for you kind of understanding this, and it allows us a little bit of a safer opportunity to go a little bit deeper. So he mentioned a lot of compounds that are involved with this. As I told you before, we're not going to be able to talk about everything, but I did want to spend some time on these three because I think they're particularly instructive. So let's start with coenzyme Q10. It's a complex molecule. It's found basically everywhere, but particularly in the mitochondria. It sits physically right on the inner membrane of the mitochondria, which is where the process of mitochondrial respiration occurs. And it doesn't play just sort of an important or supportive role. It plays an essential, indispensable, critical role in the process of mitochondrial respiration. So the basic idea here, and we'll elaborate more on this in a minute, but the basic idea here is that you're sort of enriching the environment in which the mitochondria have to function. You're basically providing what is hopefully a healthy amount of these critical factors involved in this biochemical reaction to enhance its output and enhance its efficiency. Alpha lipoic acid is really, really instructive, okay? So we'll say ALA for short, so we don't have to say that the whole time. It's been studied for a lot of different things, but we're going to kind of try to constrain our thoughts here. It is a critical cofactor, which you can think of as being an assist molecule, kind of like a sous chef in a kitchen. It's a critical cofactor for these what's called mitochondrial respiratory enzyme complexes. And these are the molecules that actually do the work, or most of it, of energy production in this process of mitochondrial respiration. So these enzyme complexes you can think of as being sort of the robots at the car assembly factory. Like if you've seen pictures of the GM factory, the Tesla factory, or whatever, these are the big robots that do a lot of the work of assembling the car, okay? So ALA is a major assist molecule or cofactor for these enzyme complexes, all right? Now, the question for the scientists has not been whether or not ALA is important for mitochondrial respiration. That is clear. The question really is whether targeted or strategic supplementation with ALA does anything measurable to increase mitochondrial output, okay? That's a different concept. So you can measure this a variety of different ways, and I've been kind of debating about how deep to go into this, but it turns out that it can. And I think it's probably relevant for us to mention a couple of the different ways. So I mentioned to you that the process of mitochondrial respiration occurs primarily on the membrane, okay, on the inner membrane of the mitochondria. Well, you can actually measure the health of that membrane by measuring something called the mitochondrial membrane potential. So you can imagine if that membrane is kind of broken down or decaying, then you're not going to have, or that would be surrogate evidence of the fact that that process is sort of becoming beleaguered or broken down. And you can measure this, and it turns out ALA supplementation does indeed improve the mitochondrial membrane potential. You can also directly measure the output or the activity of those respiratory enzyme complexes, and it turns out ALA supplementation improves their output. And you can also measure something called mitochondrial oxygen consumption, which is an indicator of sort of the output of this whole process, and it turns out that ALA supplementation does indeed improve that as well. So this has been demonstrated. It's pretty exciting. On top of that, there is some preliminary data, and I don't want to overdo it here. There is some preliminary data that suggests that ALA supplementation may actually enhance this process called mitochondrial biogenesis. Biogenesis is a fancy way of saying making more, so more mitochondria. Where this really becomes interesting is, Rob already told you that as a natural process of aging. Through no fault of anyone's, you have a decline in the function and the number of your mitochondria. And that is problematic for a superfluity of reasons. And it would be really, really nice to be able to find a way to either slow that process down or actually create more mitochondria so the consequences of what would otherwise be mitochondrial decay are not felt to such a dramatic degree. And there is some preliminary data that suggests that ALA may very well do that. Now, to what degree, we don't know exactly yet. One thing I would say, I would be remiss in not mentioning this, is that there is one thing that we do know that absolutely 100% stimulates mitochondrial biogenesis, and there is no debate about it whatsoever, and that is exercise. So that is one of the reasons why exercise is so much more important than just trying to balance out the mathematics of your calories in versus calories out. There is such a physiologic importance to exercise, but that's a different topic for another day. Okay, the last one we're going to talk about is acetyl L-carnitine, or ALCAR for short. This is one that I actually already have a fair amount of baseline familiarity with because I use a very similar molecule therapeutically in some very specific clinical circumstances in the world of toxicology, which I deal with pretty frequently in emergency medicine. So I really enjoy it. In fact, I give a lecture to the residents from time to time on this molecule and when to use it. It's a little bit tricky and interesting. But this is another molecule that sits right there on the mitochondrial membrane and is integral to the function and the process of mitochondrial respiration. And its job is to help kind of shuttle some fatty acids into these energy-producing pathways. There's no debate about that. So again, the question is targeted supplementation with ALCAR been demonstrated to improve mitochondrial function or output? And again, it seems that it has. So one way that we've looked at, this has been looked at a lot of different ways, but one way that we've seen is that ALCAR supplementation has been demonstrated to increase mitochondrial mass and structure. So basically they're stronger and more robust and a little bit larger. They're not starting to break down and kind of decay. And then there's also some evidence that, again, it's preliminary, that it may increase mitochondrial biogenesis, which is pretty exciting. Now, even if, and again, the data is looking hopeful when it comes to biogenesis, but even if for some reason some study comes out showing that it doesn't really do that, one thing that we know for sure is that ALCAR supplementation attenuates or slows down that natural process of decline that I already told you about that comes with aging. So really, really nice effect there. So let's we've been in the forest for a little bit, or we've been in the trees. We need to step back and kind of remind ourselves where we are in the forest. And kind of take a look at this. The biochemistry's all been worked out. It's as concrete as you can imagine. And there is a steady, kind of constant flow of emerging human level and clinical data demonstrating that the consequences are as expected based on the biochemistry. So it's a pretty exciting time. Again, the alpha CRS is not designed to function like a stimulant. The goal instead is to create a sustained, deep level effect, again, by nourishing your essential biology on the cellular level, okay? So totally different approach. I think a good allegory to this is like composting the soil. There's probably some gardeners in the room. I love doing that. I've unfortunately been the victim of some really beleaguered, spent, nutrient void, structureless garden soil, and you just don't get good product out of that. You don't get good plants. They're not particularly vigorous. But you mix a bunch of compost into that soil and do a little top dressing with compost, and what you're doing is you're adding in all these extra nutrients. You're inviting this new microculture to come up in the soil. All of a sudden, the worms come back and the root structure improves. And it's not something you notice overnight, okay? It's not something you notice by the end of the afternoon that you laid the compost. It's something you notice in the next growing season when you have more tomatoes and blueberries than you ever had before. And the plants are way sturdier. They get more growth out of it. They flower more robustly. And they're more drought tolerant, et cetera. So this is a really good example. We're enriching that mitochondrial environment. We're sort of composting them. So I hope that makes sense to you. Now the second mechanism, we're stepping out of the first, which is all about cellular energy production, and we're now going to visit the cellular defense side of this. And again, its main defense mechanism is antioxidants. So Rob already did a really good job talking about this, so I won't belabor the point. But you can think of antioxidants as essentially being molecular disruption machines. They basically are very unfair in the way they induce instability in neighbor molecules and sets off this extremely destructive chain reaction that can result in a lot of problems. One of them is like destroying certain compounds in the cell wall, which can actually lead to cell death, which is actually a little bit less consequential than it sounds. It sounds a whole lot more horrifying than it is. Where we really get concerned, though, is if we see damage to your genetic material. And your genetic material lives in a couple of different places, your cell's nucleus and also the mitochondria. And that's what we really worry about. That's what we want to protect at all costs. So the name that we give to the consequences of these free radical molecules is oxidative stress. And it is one of the mechanisms behind chronic inflammatory states, cardiovascular disease, some of the mechanisms of aging, cancer, especially when you get abnormalities in the code of the genetic material involved. So you can think of oxidative stress as carrying out just a constant, relentless cellular assault on your cells, and therefore it becomes a major target of the alpha CRS. And the way that it does this is by trying to make peace, not war, and it brings peace with these antioxidants. And Rob already explained to you how, so I won't belabor the point. So, it's no secret that alpha CRS provides a whole bunch of antioxidants that are extremely well evidence-based and supported, and pretty unique, actually, and we're going to dip into that a little bit. But what's interesting is not necessarily the fact that it provides you antioxidants, it's how it does this that I find so fascinating. And this is where we're going to try and bring it full circle. So you have all these different sources of oxidative stress, from the air you breathe to UV rays you're exposed to, stress, whether it's emotional or physiologic, or even physical stress like excessive exercise can induce a lot of oxidative stress, illness, can induce oxidative stress, and then of course things you might do to yourself like eating a lot of processed foods, taking certain medications, tobacco smoking, and things like that. But, as Rob alluded to, oxidative stress also results from the perfectly normal cellular processes that are occurring constantly, including mitochondrial respiration. But the key here is that your body has really nice compensatory mechanisms as long as the mitochondria are appropriately fueled and they're not stressed out. But when you have stressed out, decaying, inadequately fueled or inadequately nourished or decreased amount of mitochondria, if they're stressed out, then they create a lot of oxidative pollution that becomes very consequential. So this is what causes us to revisit the need to support these mitochondria and prevent that from happening to begin with. So because stressed out mitochondria create all this oxidative pollution, we should obviously try to alleviate that stress as much as possible. And that's where things like coenzyme Q10, ALA, Alcar, quercetin, and things like that keep things running as smoothly as possible. So it works on the preventive end. But it gets even more interesting because, as it turns out, coenzyme Q10, ALA, and Alcar also function as powerful antioxidants in their own right. So we have this incredible circumstance where by providing these compounds, you are actually cleaning up while you are powering the factory, which is pretty unique, I think, if you look out sort of on the world and how it functions at large. So really, really neat the way that that works. And then on top of that, there's tons and tons of well-validated, very powerful, evidence-based polyphenol antioxidants that they include in here. The one thing I want you to know about this, and I really do wish we could go into depth on each one, but obviously we don't have the time to do that. But this is not just some random hodgepodge of sort of popular antioxidants. This is a very well substantiated, evidentiarily selection of antioxidants. And one of the neatest things about it is that in a lot of circumstances, not only do they function as antioxidants directly, but they also increase your body's own ability to manufacture or recycle your own antioxidants, which is excellent. So you've probably seen the list. Rob mentioned several of them: Biclin, resveratrol. These are definitely ones that improve the recycling of the antioxidants. and endogenous manufacture. And then other ones found in turmeric, like curcumin. That's a particularly fascinating one, but we'll move on. So again, the two objectives of the alpha CRS we'll summarize in closing. Number one, to enhance cellular energy production, and the other is to defend the cell against oxidative damage and stress. So really fundamentally different approach from what you may very well be used to. Its idea is to optimize your nourishment on the cellular level. It's not a get thin quick sort of thing. It's not a hot wire your brain sort of thing. It tends to your cells at the most basic level. Okay? So, some of the consequences. We'll skip through this so we can get to this last slide. The idea here is to basically create what I like to call a physiologic ripple effect, whereby starting down here at the cellular level and improving its function, you're then able to optimize the function of the systems that they're next most involved with, and then larger systems, and then larger systems, and larger systems, and eventually it gets to the point where it really does affect and change how you function and feel as you're sitting there in your chair, okay? So there's two kind of tiers of benefit. You have your short-term benefit where you feel sharper, you have more energy, you're less prone to those crashes, you feel less fatigue and stress and pain and things like that. But where I really get more interested in this is in the long-term effects. I think this is the grander vision. This is where Rob was talking about this compression of morbidity. This is why I get excited about it, because as thankful as I am for the fact that my caffeine requirements have seriously withered and I feel a whole lot better at 3 o'clock in the afternoon than I used to, et cetera, what I'm really focusing on is how I'm going to feel when I'm 50 if I keep this kind of thing up. That's what I'm most interested in. I don't want to be subjected to chronic disease and basically just sort of tame it and keep it subdued. I don't want to enter that territory at all, ever to begin with, okay? And again, it's part of a healthy lifestyle. You can't do this all by yourself. I just want to remind you, exercise and eating clean and things like that are critically important. So I really appreciate all your time. Sorry we went over a little bit. I really hope you can take some of that and go with it. And thanks very much.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Doterra General Manager of Canada, Jared Auger.
Wow. I'm trying to come up for a better phrase for today, right? Brain filling? That'd be good. Does anybody's brain feel really big right now? Mine sure does. How many of you feel inspired or validated in what we are doing to take care, or no, I'll say, take control of our health? Are you feeling that? It's an amazing thing that we're all a part of. As many of you know, may know, we've been partnering with Days for Girls and our Wellness Advocate volunteers this week, building kits for Days for Girls hygiene kit components, the components, right? You've probably seen the empty display out in the foyer. Tonight, we have over 250 volunteers working really hard for a Guinness World Record attempt for the most personal hygiene kits assembled in 1 hour. We'll have to wait until tomorrow to see if we are able to make those 5,000 kits and fill up that display area. So you'll definitely want to check that out tomorrow morning. A reminder for those of you who are new silvers, golds, platinums, and our Diamond Club winners, that tomorrow you will be parading across the stage in your respective session. If you aren't walking, we welcome all of you to be here and cheer on everyone and all of your leaders. Yes, and you don't want to be late for that. Isn't that the best feeling, to see them walk across? You don't want to be late. So as a reminder, be here tomorrow on time. The doors will open at 8 o'clock for our silver and above leaders, and then at 8:30 for everyone else. Now I have some great bad news. Can we say that? Great bad news? The Doterra Marketplace is sold out of swag. That's great news, right? If you got some. So in your programs, you'll see that it was listed that the marketplace is going to be open until tomorrow. We're actually going to be closing that as of 7 p.m. tonight. So you haven't visited there, and if there's anything left, you might want to get there before 7 o'clock tonight, because that's going to be closed. Now, as we close this amazing day, this brain-filling, brain-busting, whatever you want to call it, day, we would like to offer a moment of silence to recognize those individuals and communities who have been impacted and will be impacted by the current natural disasters that are in many parts of the world right now. Let us take this moment to offer our global friends and families our thoughts, our prayers, and our positive energy. Thank you for that. We'll see you all tomorrow.